We are now live, or almost live. It's still thinking.
I voted no twice already.
All right. Okay. First of all, I believe last month I said when I was reviewing 2020 that I'd be bringing forth some transfer requests. The month got away from me. I didn't do them, so we'll bring those up next month. They're not time sensitive, so next month works fine also. Heads up that I do have a loan application on my desk. We're going to have a BDLP loan meeting on Monday, and that means that assuming it's approved, we would need a finance committee meeting before county board, so it could be approved by finance and then approved by the board. This is not the one I had about a month ago. I think I mentioned it. This one came up pretty quick, and they're hoping to open by the end of May, and that's probably not going to happen. But if we can get approved in at the May county board meeting, that would help them a lot. So for the most recent sales tax collection was $110,463. Year to date, $318,000 and change. Normally at this time we experience a dip for 2 to 4 months, and this time it didn't happen again. So that could just be the economy recovering. It could be the stimulus checks, assuming that they got their checks and spent them right away. Or it could be just that a timing difference where this month's a little higher, but the decrease happens next month. But year to date, we are again ahead of where we were last year, and it's been pretty consistent that way. I did look over the March monthly statements, and I just feel off up here today. There. And I realized that I really hadn't gone through the 2 pages that are included in the statements now, where it talks about timing differences. And March is a very good time to revisit that, and I'll show you one very good example. So if you look at child support has 0 revenue through the 3 months. And if you wonder why, if you look at that page, you look at child support, you see that child support grants are reported monthly, but they receive the payments quarterly. So this being the end of the first quarter, there are no payments there. I look at it and say, yes, that's normal. They submit 3 months worth, they get the 4th payment the following month. So again, I looked it up, and they did in fact receive a payment of about $75,000 in April for the first quarter. The timing of this just doesn't show it. So if you have some of those routine questions, that page is where you go down and answer them. Hopefully answer them. And I did add one in land conservation fund. Their septic fees actually come early in the year. I didn't have that on the list as of this printing, but it will be there going forward. Other than the routine items in the monthly statements, I I do see that the coroner again through the first 3 months is higher than the typical levels. If we remember from 2020, he was above budget by a few $1,000s. During the 2021 budget process, we did increase his budget a little bit in anticipation of normal levels being a little bit higher. And through the first 3 months, it's even higher than that. If that were to continue, he could be over budget. But that's one of those offices where that could end tomorrow. It could increase. So we'll watch that one. It's a little hard to tell. He does get revenue for some of his activities. The revenue covers some, but not all of any additional expenses. So as the year goes on, we'll have a better idea. It's just that for the first quarter, it's over the average. Solid waste fund may look a little strange right now. If you remember from last month or two, I mentioned that the DNR had to approve the amount we sent in to be reimbursed from the fund. I did finally receive a letter about a half an hour after I sent our trial balance to the auditors. The letter did approve the full amount. Because I didn't know that at the end of the year, I took my best guess and said, well, we should get at least the average amount of $63,000 and change. The DNR ultimately approved our $75,000 request. So we will be getting $75,000 for 2020. We're going to stick with the $63,000 revenue I have in there. The rest will be recognized as revenue in 2021. It's not a significant difference, so we'll leave that. It looks strange right now because I had to record the revenue as of December 2020. In the entry of that, the system will let me automatically reverse it in 2021. So when we receive the check, or in this case, a direct deposit of $70,000, we don't record the revenue twice. We will only see it as revenue in 2020. If those two amounts were the exact same, they would zero out like it needs to. So the cash received in 21, revenue recorded in 2020. And that one was received already. There's a similar item in the Sheriff's Department where we will receive our $125,000 Next Gen grant. So that one was recognized as revenue in 2020 because the project was substantially completed. That check hasn't arrived yet, so that one will stand out for a little bit longer. So if you see something like that, it's probably a timing difference. If you're not sure, ask me and I'll let you know. Promo and rec. Just a reminder that the workers' comp code for the director changed from office to other municipal. That's a little bit higher. In the big picture, that department will be able to absorb that. That won't put them over budget. But earlier this week, we found out that the air conditioning unit at the Fairgrounds Expo Hall quit, and replacement of that will be about $12,000. That one may or may not fit in their budget. It kind of depends on what else they have to do at the fairgrounds. Last year with no fair and no events, there was very little spent at the fairgrounds. This year, if it goes back to normal, the department should be okay because there's room for there. It just means they can't do other maintenance things. However, the fairgrounds having sat virtually empty for a year, maybe there's something that comes up where they may need more maintenance. This is one of those, here's the information, this one has to be replaced. You can't have a building without the air conditioning. We will wait until about October or so to see if that can fit within the budget. If not, they will come forward and ask for probably either fund balance or contingency funds, depending where we are at that time. And as a reminder, the furnace in the sheriff's evidence building, same thing. That was $3,000. We'll try and absorb that into the department. If it can't be, then we'll come back later. And unless there's questions, one more thing, our auditors will be here starting May 19th through the 28th. And usually it's not that long, but with the stimulus funds that we got last year, there's going to be more testing. There's going to be more on-site work from them. So unless there's any questions, that's all I have for this month.
You have the reports in front of you. Don't need to go over them. Year to date right now, we are at, let's see, that 106% for medical. We're at 123% for dental. If you're seeing that the medical is right now at roughly 45,000 over what we receive in premiums, and the dental is 9,000 over in premiums. Again, it's the first quarter, and there's no real changes for us to make. If at the end of the year we see a trend of where we continue to go over what we get in premiums, well, then we incorporate that into whatever the premium increase is for the next year to try to build that back up. If there's no questions, I'll then just go on to large claimant. For first quarter, as you can see, we have only 2 large claimants right now. They are all 100% over the stop loss amount, which means that any additional costs or claims that are made by either of these 2 claimants, our stop loss insurance will reimburse the county dollar for dollar. Is there any questions regarding the medical, dental, large claimant reports? If not, then I'll go on to overtime, if that's okay, Mr. Chair. As we see from overtime, if we're looking at year to date for sheriff and jail division, that still looks pretty good so far. If we compare it to what we had from last year, it's a little bit above, but not too bad.
One comment.
Sure.
This is for April. April had 3 pay periods, so they normally would be a little bit higher. It's not obvious from that report.
Correct. Thank you, Paul. Other than that, you see that highway is starting. That'll start to probably go up as the as the summer months progress, because there'll be more time spent on road projects, but no real issues as of right now that I see. In fact, if you go from the total, we're at actual year to date 70,000 as opposed to roughly 75,000 the previous year. Unless there's any questions, I am finished, Mr. Chair.
Any questions at all for Paul? Excuse me.
Either one, doesn't matter.
I don't think my mic is working, is it?
Oh, let's do this then. Hold on. A
That's
lot of times what happens is, no track.
No? Oh, wow. Hey, guys. Now we know we got to push down on this thing. Okay. Moving on. Treasurer's report. Good morning.
Good morning. 3 months have passed and I'm here again. Basically, you have the information on the snapshot of what our accounts look like at the end of March. You can see, obviously, Nicolay, our operating cash, our short-term investments, and then as well as our long-term investments. Not much is, obviously, we had an increase in our account balance, and that's because we got tax money, the tax money from our January and February settlements. So that is obviously the driving force. You can be reassured that those amounts are not what is in there today, that the pool is probably about at $8 million at this point. So just to let you know that money has gone out as well. As you can see, and I'll address this next quarter, that we did have some CDs at American Deposit Management come due this past month. We did reinvest them, obviously not at the same rate that we had at that point. So we're in the process of reinvesting them. And also, after talking to Paul, we have decided to send another $1 million into our long-term investment to Bob Moore at so they are being reinvested this month, or another additional $1 million we'll be sending to Schwab for our long-term goals. So any questions on anything there? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody's pretty quiet this
Yeah.
morning. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right. Discussion of the county fees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we had done a couple months ago, it was asked that we try to do a comprehensive review of our county fees. And last month I had indicated that we had a number of counties that did not charge fees or were had fees set by state statute. And so you have in front of you a packet of information regarding fees. And the cover memo, and I'll quickly go over it, is that the county currently has 25 total departments. And of those 25 departments, 7 of them charge no fees whatsoever to the public. And I want to be clear, this does not talk about copies of documents. So that is every department. If there's a public request for documents, we can charge a copying fee. This is not part of that. This is fees for services that we do. So there are 7 departments that charge no fees. There are 7 departments that have fees that are set by state statute. So, and then we have 11 that are set or determined by the county. I didn't think, and I didn't put in the packet any of the information that has that the departments put in their budgets about fees that are set by state statute. If you look back in your budget, you will see at the end of each department's budget, there are pages if they charge fees to the public. So the clerk of courts has a number of pages, but all of those fees are set by state statute. So I did not include those. Also, as part of this process, I had asked the departments to try to get information from roughly about 6-7 counties within the area as to what type of fees that they charge. So what you have with you, and we don't have to, and I don't want to go department by department today, but what we would then like to do is, if there are specific fees that the committee would like to talk about and discuss, I would then like to invite that department head here so that way we can discuss them. I'll give a couple different examples of what I think what the committee may want to do. I would assume that they would want to have land and water conservation as well as zoning together as part of this, since they do have a number of fees that are charged. Promotion and rec also has something. Those are probably 2 of the largest. Highway has some as well. As for corporation counsel, county clerk, DA, public health, land information, county treasurer, they have just a few. We can do a cursory review next month and see if that's something that we want to talk about. It would be my suggestion to committee members, after looking through this, if there are specific specific departments that you would like to have invited over, that would be, please make me aware and we can set that up. So as long as the committee has no problem, I may want to start to bring some department heads in front of you starting next month, if that is okay with the committee.
What is the total that we collect in fees from all departments in a year? Do you have that?
Paul, do you have anything like that?
Just out of curiosity.
It might be part of the budget, and it may not be perfect, but it'll be close. Because I think we do fines, fees, and permits.
Yeah, here we go. Budgeted for 2021. Fines, fees, and permits, $69,504.
Oh, really? And that's, so 69,000 bucks total, all of the departments.
Right.
Correct.
And there's one called licenses and permits here, which may or may not be included in there. It's another 80,400. So some of those could be on the fee schedule if it's for a permit. Land conservation, I believe, have permit fees.
So the
So
80,000 is
plus 70.
Call it 150.
150.
150 on a budget of what?
25 million.
25 million. Okay.
And the only don't get me wrong, Mr. Chair, I think I know where you're going in the respect that 150 out of 225 million is a small portion of the budget.
It's not nothing. But
I just want to make sure that on a an irregular basis that the committee is looking at these, because from a budget standpoint, these are forms of revenue. I'll give a perfect example is for promo and rec right now, to do tubing at the hill is $8. And I've told Mr. Myers that I am going to recommend to the committee that for 2022 or even for this season, that be bumped up to $10 in the respect that in this day and age, it costs $10 to go see a movie. I think you can do $10 to go tubing at Winter Park. And that helps to cover the costs of helping to provide what is a good recreational experience.
Well, $150,000 isn't nothing, but it's not going to make our tax year either.
Correct, exactly. But so, and what I also noticed with a number of these, I'll be honest, in the big picture, is that we're pretty in line with most other counties. There are some counties that were a little bit higher, some counties that were a little bit lower. The other thing that I noticed is there are some fees that we didn't have included in our budget. From the highway standpoint, there's a number of utility permits and driveway cuts and the like that are not part of the budget document, which we will now start to include in our budget document. It doesn't mean that they necessarily need to be changed, but just so that way we're aware. But overall, and again, you'll have the information, is that we're pretty much in line with other counties. There's a fee here or there that we could possibly raise, or if you wanted to lower, but in the big picture, I don't see any need for major changes in how we do our fees.
Okay, any other questions?
I guess the only one that I have, Mr. Chair, is what I proposed to the committee okay? Because I've told you what I'd like to do, but I haven't heard a yes or no, whether yes, Scott, that's okay with us.
Go ahead, Doug.
So Scott, you propose bringing the department heads in here to discuss their fees. Are we also going to be challenged to, or do we agree with them? Or, I mean, there's a lot of information that we won't have about, whether we should recommend increasing them.
Well, and that's where, in some ways, I'd like to have the discussion. So I'll give a good example is the two biggest ones probably are going to be land and water and promotion and rec. And so therefore, just having the discussion with the department head as to, well, why do we charge the fee that we do? What do other counties charge? There's no action that needs to be taken at all at this present time. But the reason that we're doing this is in preview of the county budget. So therefore, if changes were going to be made, then they would be made during the budget process for 2022. And therefore, we've had the discussion with the department head as to whether a fee needs to be changed or not. And so therefore, if a fee were to be changed, then the department head and the committee have had that discussion, and it's not just a blind action by the committee that we're just going to raise a fee, and we never really had any discussion as to why we should or should not raise that fee.
Well, if it's for information only, and it's a 10-minute, by department, I think it'd be well worth it. I'm completely unaware of what fees we charge. But then you got into this thing about should we change it? Who's going to make that decision?
Ultimately, because it is a budget item, ultimately the finance committee can decide what a fee is, and the board, as part of the budget, would approve that or not approve that. More often than not, you also want to have a conversation with that standing committee. I know that back when zoning was part of extension, there was some questions about raising the septic fee. It used to be $5 a year, and the finance committee raised it to $10, and they had done that, and they didn't necessarily have a conversation with the extension and zoning committee. And so before the finance committee were to make any recommendations as to any fee changes, I think there should be a conversation between the department, the standing committee, and the finance committee.
Yes. Can, Is it too much to ask that when they come in to discuss it, they can reference other counties, local counties as to what they're charging?
Yes, and that
It's
actually
on
that
there.
information
Is it in there? Okay.
should also be in the packet as well, but yes.
Excellent, excellent.
And so that, and again, that's where they can have that conversation and they can provide much more context than what I could.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, if I could make a suggestion to the committee, you have the packet in front of you. Review that packet. If you have questions, either address them to Scott or myself before the next meeting, so we can request that those committees would be able to be here at a time, and we can go through it then. All right?
Yeah, actually, and absolutely, Mr. Chair. And actually, what I was thinking is since there's only 11 of them and a number of them are going to be probably no more than 5 minutes, I don't picture Corporation Counsel or the county clerk or the DA or land information or the county treasurer or public health, those taking very long at all because they have only 2 or 3 fees that they charge. And so there may not even be a need to meet with them. But if there is, it shouldn't take that long. Like I said, it's your larger ones that have a number of fees that will. And I can probably tell you right away, as for human services, they have a number of fees. A lot of that is done through what the cost is from a human services standpoint and what we get for reimbursement. So that would be a very difficult review process to actually do. So it would be my recommendation, at least at this time, is that we would forego any type of meeting with human services regarding those fees. Because again, those are just what we kind of charge to try to recoup some of our costs. And they're very similar to what other counties do.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, can
Yes, you may.
we go to 10 before we go to 9?
Sure we can.
Okay, as for number 10, that was placed on the agenda. It is, I'll call it more of a heads up for right now. In fact, Tracy is here if there's any general questions, and I'm going to do just enough to probably screw it up. So Tracy, if you want to come to a mic, that would be fine. There's been a request to place a high frequency antenna at the EOC in Luxembourg. Part of that is to do with any type of emergency management for communications. We're still looking at information regarding electrical requirements and grounding requirements, but if Tracy Nolenberg could kind of just give the general sense as to why this issue was brought forward, we can start there.
So the reason for the high frequency antenna is in the event that we lose communication here in Kewaunee County due to an incident, our amateur radio operators will be able to communicate to Madison using that high frequency antenna. So that is the reason for this project. And like Scott had said, we're just waiting on a little bit of information to find out more about the electrical aspect of it before we bring it back to this committee.
So again, the purpose of this is more of a heads up. We do not need any type of action today, but I wanted that if it's on the agenda, and so therefore if there were some general questions to begin with, that we could try to answer them now. And then if there are technical questions when it comes to an action standpoint, then we would also have the person that knows much more of the technical expertise side. That person would be here in attendance to answer any of those questions.
Any questions at all? Yes, Sheriff.
I'm just wanted to pop in real quick. This issue had come up shortly after we stood up the those towers in the radio system, and I think we just want to be very cautious because the group, the hobbyists that are running that the ham, the Aries Races, there was definitely a concern by our consultant at the time that we have to be very careful what we put on that tower in regards to the grounding, because of a lot of times they tend to like run vertical or horizontal wires across a building. There's a lot of unique things they do which serve their purpose, but are in a definite conflict with what we have on that tower. So this was an issue that we probably chewed on about maybe 9 years ago. And at that time, we were very hesitant because for that reason. So just make sure we do our due diligence, because these two worlds of high frequency or low frequency shortwave radio up against our digital system, we just want to make sure we don't cause any conflict. So just so you know, there was some history there.
Thank you, Sheriff. And that's where I would direct Tracy that as we move this forward, let's make sure, because probably more important is that there is no interference or thing that doesn't allow the Sheriff's Department to do their side. So again, we'll make sure that that is taken care of as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Tracy? Okay, being no other questions, let's go back to 10.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As last month, we had put in the policy or a draft policy regarding the naming of buildings, properties, parks, and facilities. This provides a policy guideline as well as a process as to how to move this forward and criteria. So at least for right now with this issue, I would leave this is now kind of left in the committee's hands as to whether they want to adopt this document and policy, or whether, whatever is the committee's pleasure regarding this, I guess is where I'd go.
Okay. I think you're all aware that we do presently have facilities in the county that are named after people or places, but we never had a policy. And whether we name or do not name, at least we have a policy that we can fall back on. And I feel it's better to have a policy and not use it than to not have a policy and then go willy-nilly as far as what we're going to do. So, and it would be my recommendation that we go forward with the naming policy, and we'll see where it falls from here. Any other questions? Of course, I would need a motion and a second to that. Doak, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I'd rather not move this forward any further. I know that, I forget his name. Jeff and I talked this last time. It felt like it was becoming just blow it up in our face how many rules and regulations we had to put in place, and it didn't seem like there was a great need for it right now.
Okay. Virginia, you have any opinion?
I actually am agreeing with him. Everybody that I've talked to this about a policy of naming buildings after people, everybody was pretty much saying, why are we naming it? Like an employee got paid all the years they were working here. It's different. They said if somebody gave them the land and paid for the building and everything else to name it after them. But they said just because somebody did the job, and I'll go ahead and use my dad as an example, who was veteran service officer forever. He said, I worked there for decades. He says, where's there going to be a building named for me? Where do you draw the line on which employee gets something named? And so he said there would be more people that would be offended that they didn't even get mentioned and somebody else got something, because we had a lot of good employees over the decades. So I guess I agree with him that I don't want to go forward. I didn't get one good comment on it to anybody I asked.
Okay. Tom, you got anything? Okay.
But if you wanted to donate the 15 million for a new highway shop, John, we would definitely put your name on it.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Deal at half the price.
I would tell you, I would probably ask you that you put your name on it, Dan. Okay. All right. So there seems to be no attitude or no appetite for the committee to go forward on that one. So the motion would die. That policy is going to die. Number 11, review the vendor payments. And everybody had a chance. So, well, there's a copy running around here someplace.
Well, the copy's up here if anybody wants to see it, but it was sent with the agenda. Sorry.
All right. And then the supplemental payroll, I see it sitting over there by Virginia. Oh, okay. If you want to throw it up here so I can get it. Motion by Tom to approve supplemental payroll, seconded by Doak. Any questions, comments? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, is there any other business? I don't hear anything. Dan, you're kind of quiet back there. Oh, geez. Can I have a raise? Okay. Next meeting date. I'm just looking.
You're gonna have a short meeting before the board, is that correct?
June 4. Yeah, we're gonna have one before the board. The meeting is on the 15th, correct? So that would
It's
be
18.
half hour before that.
Half an hour should be plenty.
Okay.
We have a loan review committee on Monday, so then finance committee would have to, assuming it's approved, finance committee would have to approve it to go to the board. No, it's a business development loan committee received an application for a loan from a county to a business. If the loan committee approves it, it comes to finance and then the board.
Yeah. Maybe at 5:30, yeah, right here. All right. Probably meeting in a conference room down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, small committee room. And then in June, the first Friday is the 4th. Is that enough time? Paul's really efficient, you know, he could probably do it on a day's time if he had to. Okay. June 4th, 8 a.m. All right. Any other business at all? No other comments? Okay, then I would need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Doak, seconded by Tom. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? Even I won't oppose that one. All right. We're out at 8:39. Got to be a new modern day record, folks. I got to go put one of them out. Not a fire, not a dumpster fire, but I got to put a fire out. We're off the air?
Yes.